Hello, and a good day to you. I know it's gorgeous here in North Carolina. My name is Jeffrey, and this video is about change, energy, compassion, and on passive. The information presented was briefly talked about in the Old Perspective webinar of September 27th, just last week, and we put the link to it here. And that shares my perspectives concerning the role of Onpassive, the lifting of humanity, and even the role of the founder. So this is kind of a continuation for that, in that I mentioned some things about energy and things that are helping us in Onpassive, and I wanted to flesh that out a bit in here. And the reason I'm doing it is because I had some requests to do that. So getting the really big picture means that we need to look out, to the stars from beyond our planet, even our solar system. Our position in the Milky Way galaxy points to a whole lot of change, and that's pretty big change too. And I mean, it's big enough to have been seen by the ancients, the indigenous people of the planet. By indigenous, I'm talking about the people that have inherited and still practice some pretty unique cultures that have characteristics different from those that are in the dominant societies they live in. And the information they recorded points to a very special time of change, and this change is said to occur, quote, at the end of the age, unquote, which references the then current age, right? It's a time cycle. Interpretations for predictions at the end of the age are included in several world religions, and they're depicted for writings rather graphically in the book of Revelation. At the time of Christ, we were about 3,000 years into one of these ages called a Great World Age, and they last about 5,200 years. Now, these Great World Ages are a repeating cycle, but there's another age that runs its course in almost 26,000 years as well, and that's the one that we're actually kind of interested in this. And to that end, records were made by the indigenous peoples, like the Aztec and the Toltecs and the Mayan, right? Civilizations like those, and they are the ones that gave us these cycles of time. Now, the Maya had mathematics, and they used those formulas, and they had lots of long records of all the stars' movements. And that record, or at least one of them, is what we call the Mayan calendar. It's a system of 3 interlacing calendars and almanacs that was used by several cultures in Central America, most famously the Mayans. That calendar runs for 5,125 years. It's got 3 separate corresponding calendars, and they're called the Long Count, the Zolkin, and the Hob. And when I refer to the start of the stop of the Great World Ages, I'm referring to the cycle, or that cycle, those cycles in years as measured by the long count. By keeping track of those movements in the long counts over time, 5 complete cycles actually, they saw what we call a quote unquote wobble of the Earth. And that's caused by a recurring change in the orientation of the Earth's axis of rotation, and it takes about 25,625 years, as opposed to the duration of the Great World Age of 5,125 years, right? They said that the pivot point of that wobble, which is the point from which it's measured, right, was coming, and that it marked not only the end of the Great World Age, but the much longer age cycle we just mentioned is called the precession of the equinoxes. And as alluded to a minute ago, 5 Great World Ages occur within the time frame of the precession of the equinoxes. The Great World Age we just came out of started about 3000 BC and ended in December of 2012, December 21st at 1111 to be exact. Historically, the endings of the past Great World Ages have all been associated with catastrophic shifts that changed the face of the Earth and altered entire civilizations. And knowing this, we can see why the whole world seemed to be a little bit nervous at the turn of the century, or, as we started the new millennium. I mean, the cycle recorded in the Mayan calendar seemed to just stop pretty cold. And it seemed that we had literally ran out of time, so that date came with predictions ranging from total destruction and desolation and chaos to, oddly enough, 1,000 years of peace. But the repeating patterns were there. So we ask ourselves, what changed? Why no devastation? Well, in short, it has to do with time fractals, and these are discussed in Greg Braden's book, Fractal time. Specifically, it's got to do with the fundamental fractal from which all ripples of potentials are based. And the fundamental fractal of Earth time for our galaxy is the precession of the equinoxes caused by the physical wobble of the planet that we mentioned earlier. And that's key to why our current cycle is so different, because it's not like the endings of the four great world age cycles before the last one. It's because we're sitting at the center, right? The end and beginning point of the precession of the equinoxes. Yeah, it's the new beginning of a new great world age, but more significantly, it's the beginning of a new 26,000 year cycle that we call the precession of the equinoxes. And it's the first time that this has happened in modern history. And this is the prediction of the ancients, which includes the Mayans, and that's why the old calendar stopped. This fundamental center, the precession of the equinoxes, gives new energy that, unlike previous cycles, allows for change. That change is part of the reason why Mr. Mufara's Onpassive is unstoppable. Now, the changes that have started actually have two pieces to it. Number one, the Earth's movement into a new section of our galaxy with new and different energy, right? And number two, moving into a new fundamental time fractal cycle. And the proof of this higher energy lies in what I call wild cards. We've talked about these before. And these are things that we can't predict and didn't even expect. I've talked about some of them previously, like as an example, let's look at the fall of the Soviet Union. By the late 1980s, it was pretty obvious that humanity's thinking was shifting. There was a harmonic convergence of 1987 that was actually a turning point. And yeah, that sounds a little mysterious, but it was a name that was actually given to the world's first coordinated global peace meditation. And that happened back in August 16th and 17th of 1987. So there's nothing real mysterious, right? Not with that anyway. At the beginning of 1992, the Cold War was dissolved, and that indicated a shift in human nature toward a harmonious process for putting things together instead of tearing them apart. Another example has to do with Israel's capital several years ago, and that's reflecting real change, right? For them, the past is not repeating, and there are a lot of these wild cards that are happening. So let me give you one specific reason why our time is different from the other repetitive long counts that we've seen. You see, there's a 36-year window between the start and stop of cycles, and that includes the precession of the equinoxes. And during this time, we experienced diminishing residual energy from the last long count. So it took us 18 years to put us at the center, December 2012, the 21st. So we won't be out of it until 2030. What we're experiencing now in the residual energy is akin to chaos. It's a time between systems, and the world is just a little topsy-turvy with a lot of major potentials that are still being felt, but we're going to be okay. Let's talk about what makes everything so different this time, okay? First, we're at the end of a fundamental cycle of 26,000 years, give or take. And that alone is given us a time with a very special energy simply because there are specific celestial alignments happening. Additionally, the Earth has entered into a new field, right? It's a different energy in the space that we occupy in the Milky Way that's affected the magnetic and crystalline grids of our planet. And it's also had an effect on human consciousness. And there are rumors that the Schumann resonance of the planet has shifted and gone up, but don't pay any attention to that. It's still pretty much the same. Anyway, the Earth with this new energy, it's quite specific. If you've been following global events in healthcare and politics, especially politics, business, yada yada yada, then you've already seen it. Some of us will probably start to roll our eyes a bit about what I'm going to get into. For others, it's a validation. Either way, we need to know that energy is multidimensional and we're all connected. That should be nothing new to you. And this is to say that we're all allied in one energy and we have responsibility towards each other, towards everyone, right? Because we're all together in one energy. And because of that, we can do much more together. The idea is becoming more and more commonplace, all of this unified energy and being all connected. Remember the saying, where two or more are gathered? Well, it talks about, or it alludes to at least, the near exponential power that we have together when we come together and we start using this subtle energy. I mean, think about it. Do you think that Mr. Mufar is saying that we win bigger together is an accident? I mean, man, you can feel what's going on here. There's something here, and it's about new potentials. It's about new paradigms that are going to occur on the planet, new potentials of existence. So consider this. The measure of enlightenment, right, of any civilization is their compassion for each other. And we call that, or at least I do, the compassion factor. This is what makes the difference between a high and low consciousness civilization. High consciousness puts others before self. Low consciousness doesn't, to put it very simply. And you may have heard me talk about compassion or compassionate action in the past. And that's about putting compassion in what we do and what we plan, about using compassion as a basis for the action that we take, hence compassionate action. What we see are actual structures for compassion being put in place to initiate a paradigm shift, right? That's what we're seeing. Incidentally, what we're also talking about here is the evolution, and it's an evolution of business as well. And that is what Onpassive is all about. And there's no smooth road for this, so we just need to get over it. But Mr. Mufara has spoken about this recently, and we've seen it over the past 2 years, right? I mean, he's talked about it. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's how it works. And things tend to get a little worse before they get a lot better, because that's the way of it. And that's been our experience too, probably in our personal lives, in our business lives, and certainly with Onpassive. Sometimes there is failure. Sometimes there is effort that we expend that doesn't give us the result we want, so we try and try again. That's the mindset, and you can believe that we are in it to win it. So to that end, Onpassive's lead is to provide compassionate action to alleviate the injustices felt by those in need. Now, it would be great if our government followed that lead to develop a Department of Compassionate Action or something like that, I mean, first for our country and then for the planet. But right now, there's not a system to handle the injustices, not compassionately anyway, but that's changing. Onpassive has the system and is leading the way. What Mr. Mufar has done could not have been done in the old energy. Nobody in the old energy could have ever upheld the compassion-based standards that he has got. It's been tried and it's been squashed. I mean, think about all the promises of free energy and all the inventions that got stepped on and, rolled into some massive warehouse somewhere, right? But Mr. Mufar is not the only one thinking this way, but he is the first to put it into a real world practice. And there are others beginning to push the passion factor and trying to create an economic system that partly works by helping people as part of the structure of the system. And right now, in the world of business and, specifically marketing and contracts, there's not a whole lot of compassion. But what if there were? What if, before considering doing business with the company, we asked, is this a compassionate business? Well, that might sound a little bit weird, but it won't for long. And let me tell you why. There are energies that we haven't experienced yet. These are new, subtle energies, even physical energies everywhere, and they don't even have a name yet. But they become catalysts when used in conjunction with compassion, which is in itself a subtle energy. Concerning this energy and Onpassive, you can't stop this. Mr. Mufar has said it before. It's unstoppable. And when business comes together in a compassionate way, where goals are no longer simply products and profits, it'll change the people in the business, it'll change the business, and it will change the world. It will lift humanity. This is to say, when something else is present, namely when compassionate action is present within the business structure, so people have to be helped, it's a prerequisite. Then when we start seeing this, there's going to be an unexpected advantage that you can only attribute to quantum, because as soon as it's implemented in any company, it manifests guaranteed success to such an extent that it will lift the entire human consciousness. Sound familiar? Well, Onpassive is guaranteeing our success and will lift humanity. The energy, when entangled with compassion, creates systems where everybody wins. Sound familiar? Yeah, a few are doing it. You'll learn more about these few. I'm telling you, they're going to publish what they're doing, and they're going to birth a new paradigm in business that operates such that every time a product is sold, someone is helped. This is to say, there's internal funding and balance in this new paradigm corporation for helping others. Mr. Mufar has done it with Onpassive. It's an unknown and rather mysterious business model that comes out into the light. But remember, 2 steps forward and 1 step back, right? A model created from scratch experiences the same ebb and flow of life, right, as all other life events. You have good days and you have bad days. But a company that has a model never before seen in our history, with more compassion than ever before, that works through compassionate action multiplied in a new energy, will provide only winners and winners. Sound familiar? We're at the start of an era during which the success of the corporation will no longer be measured by just profits, but by a compassion factor. Man, I'm loving this, right? It's going to be measured much like we measure ecologic success right now. I mean, we ask, hey, is it a green company? Instead, we're going to be saying, is it a compassionate company? And we may even see a big heart next to the ticker symbol on the stock exchange. Who knows? You may think that models like this exist, but they don't really. They're still missing some pieces, and I gotta say, you don't know what you don't know. So let me tell you, there are people putting trial economic systems in software simulations right now, right, where the very economics of the system are able to grow as they help people. It's automatic and designed into the system. Sounds a lot like AI with heart to me, right? And I don't mean charities or giveaways, though that is part of the equation. We're talking about compassionate action in a very real business. Impossible? Not hardly. We just haven't seen it yet, but we will. It's on the way. It's taken Onpassive almost 3 years so far, but we can see the light. Trust me, it's a done deal. Yeah, it's been a minute. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Remember, tangible timelines are about to emerge. Start looking at things differently. I encourage you to relax into knowing that this is so much bigger than any of us may think, and we're a part of it. Truly, this is an exciting time to be alive, and you should be fully engaged. So, if someone has invited you to become a founder, get back with them and join that team. If not, I invite you to click on the description box below, join our team. Regardless, change is here, and whether you join us or not, we wish only blessing and blessing for you and your entire family.